Are we ready
Oh,
to begin?
no, I think, sad to say, I predict that we'll have 2 to 3 times as many people if we wait 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to, in the meantime, just let everyone know the anticipated run of show
Hmm.
so that people can plan their mornings or afternoons or evenings if they have time constraints. So I'm informed by John Liu that we will have a really good presentation this morning. My time at 6 a.m. between Seattle and Vancouver. And John will present for 20 minutes. Aude Peronne will present for 20 minutes. And then we will have a highly interactive, I hope, and engaged discussion about our most important subject for these crossroads of humanity. So, John, I'll hand it over to you and breathe and have a sip of my early morning tea.
Well, that's fantastic. If you don't mind, and because it's sort of inevitable, I'm going to suggest that we take 5 minutes and let people come in and use that occasion to meet and greet the people who come in, who, especially the ones we don't know. Like, for example, we Zayamano Innocent. How nice to meet you. Where do you join us from?
You are on mute, Innocent.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I'm mute. Okay, yeah, I am Innocent Wizeyimana. I'm joining from Kigali, Rwanda.
From
I was
Rwanda.
given the link by my friend. Is he yet there? I don't see him.
Leo Imaremia?
Eh? Yes.
Yeah, good. I'm glad he brought you
Yeah.
in. He will join us
Yeah, I
as
saw
soon
I
as
saw
he can.
he shared the flyer and I realized, oh wow, this is in alignment with what we do. We do plant trees and we have a platform to monitor the planted trees up to we kind of say we grow trees because when you plant trees, we plant with organizations, but some years ago they would plant trees, but after 2 years, when you ask them how many trees have you planted, they can tell you thousands. How many are still alive? You could find they are not sure of what, but with our platform and our field agents, they can monitor on a dashboard on their website. They can see these are the trees, these are the stage of development, carbon sequestration, jobs created. They can showcase the impact they're creating in the community. So a part of the trees we plant, fruit trees, agroforestry trees, to make sure that the community can, planting trees is sustainable because without engaging community on it, it can't be sustainable. We can't create habitat for, say, wild animals. We can't create food for people. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
I
you
will
so much.
say to you and other newcomers that you have qualified for membership in the ERA almost automatically by finding your way to this meeting.
Great.
And
Thank you so much.
if you our ritual is that if you give us even that much of an introduction and it becomes as obvious as it is that you belong in our distinguished ranks, we would be delighted to have you as a member, put you on our mailing list, let you know about these meetings, which happen every 2 weeks on a confusing rotating schedule, 9 in the morning or
I was lucky to be in a presenting series session with John, Dee, and Aude a few weeks ago. I'm a member of the Design School for Regenerating Earth, and I'm very interested in this subject. I'm writing a story about the healing of our collective heart and healing of Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward.
Welcome.
Morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
I'm Edward. I'm based in Costa Rica. I am Costa Rican. I'm the founder of the University for International Cooperation, and we've been working on large-scale bioregional regeneration now for about 15 years.
And yet we haven't met before. Pleasure to meet you. Mick?
Edward and I were in Saudi Arabia together last year in December. And then we were just in, my goodness, France and Britain.
Oh, nice.
Bienvenidos, Edward. I'm really happy to meet you as well, and I'm glad that you and Emmanuel and Innocent and others can join us today. Thank you.
Absolutely. I do recognize that Phoebe and John may well know all the people who I'm forcing to introduce themselves, but Mick, would you say hello so that you're on my radar?
Hi, I'm Mick Lawkins. I'm in England, and I was recommended this from a guy who works for More Trees now, and he said, "Come along and listen." So I thought I'd see what it's all about, really.
Very good.
And he's
Thank
a
you.
sustainavista, I'm guessing.
He, amongst other things, he harvests trees and then replants them in other places. So goes
He's
into
also
woods.
on mute.
All right, is he?
I think
But here he is.
Hello, guy. You know me. I don't say too much, do I, John? And John.
No, that's right.
No, I'll be fine.
Very-
Thanks. Welcome to the club, Mitch. Yeah, I'll change my name for the others. Grant from More Trees Now, Meer Bome from More Green from the Netherlands. But lovely to connect you, all of you, and great initiative, John and Aude. Nice talking. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, it's 9:09. How about if I just ask for a sentence of welcome from people who I don't recognize? Rochelle Stein, Michael Vernier, and then other people will be allowed to enter silently while the games have begun. Hello, Rochelle.
Hello, everyone. Wow, this is unexpected, needing to introduce myself. I am from Cape Town, and I'm part of the Mycelial Media Collab, a member of the network. And I've recently grassroots economics, Aude and Will Ruddick's work. I've been very, their commitment pooling and also their work around, ecosystems, regenerating communities and restoring ecosystems. I've been following them and very interested in that. So, and then I saw this opportunity to actually hear Aude speak, and so that's Aude and John actually. So that's that's why I'm here.
I'm
Very
really
good.
glad, I must say, to see you from the Mycelium Collab. I'm also a member of that, Rochelle.
Oh, Phoebe.
Yeah.
I'm
Nice
new.
to see you.
I'm new.
No, I'm kind of new there too, but having lived in
great.
Cape Town for probably a total of about 16 years, up until about 8 years ago, I feel that the Mycelium Media Collab is a really important partner to the work that my husband and I do in documentary making, but also it's great to see you here as part of this community. So I'd like to propose
Lovely
that
to meet you.
we go ahead, John, if that's all right. And
Absolutely.
very happy to see you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you for joining us. I think it's fair to say that the topic we face today with John Dennis Liu and Aude Peronne is one of the most important subjects and sets of questions that we can ask ourselves at these crossroads of civilization. We are in that really uncomfortable, awkward, writhing phase of dysfunction in the old world as it really starts to fall apart and become horrible in many dimensions. And if we are to succeed in working our way into a new world where humanity has a different relationship with the planet and with each other, we need to really work not only in the mechanics or the science of ecosystem restoration, but how this works with the restoration of the human mind and psyche, with the sets of systems that we set up based on our minds and psyches, from the way we run our households and our communities to the way we structure our economies. Whether there even is a global economy in the future remains to be seen. And so I think I'm really, really humbled and happy to introduce my good friends and colleagues who really need no introduction to most of you. John is well known globally for his incredible work, both in ecology and soil science, but also more in filmmaking, and leaving an amazing legacy of teaching films and inspirational films such as Hope in a Changing Climate and many others on the restoration of our lands and watersheds and how we can bring that about at scale and at speed. And as among many roles in the Common Lands Foundation and as the founder of ecosystem restoration communities and many other things, John has really shown how it's possible to work at scale and at speed with, John, what is it now, 80 restoration camps on 6 continents in, I think, 7 years. Is that right?
It's 86 and more are coming, and it's 8 years since we started the first camp.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with you. Thank you. And in most of that journey in recent years, John has been working closely with the wonderful Aude Peronne, who I am really pleased also to have as a colleague and friend on several of the initiatives that we are running. This Masterclass, for example, is a collaboration of the Global Restoration Collaborative, which John and I started back in 2022 at COP27 in Egypt, and the Ecorestoration Alliance, which has kindly taken us in as the Global Restoration Collaborative because we are not an organization so much as a short-term and medium-term convening forum to bring together all of us working in a regenerative space who weren't really talking with each other, not only the ecosystem restoration communities, but those in climate restoration, biodiversity rewilding and conservation, social reconnection, youth empowerment in the nature space, women's leadership in the nature space, indigenous cultural bridges working in the nature and climate and social spaces. So very happy to welcome you all. And I guess without further ado, I would like to hand over for about 20 minutes of John's presentation, another 20 minutes after that of Aude's presentation, and then we will have an interactive Q&A and discussion session on the faces that the challenges that we all share, regenerating communities and restoring ecosystems. So, John, you have the floor.
Just let me know if you're seeing this in full screen.
We are now. Yeah, thank you.
We do.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and have you here. I'm glad we're recording this so it can live on in the internet. And I've been getting very philosophical in my old age. So I'm going to talk about time. And I see time as a very interesting thing, which is not simply about temporal time, our time, but about cosmic time and earth time and evolutionary time and human history leading up to now, and then the future stretching before us. So before we get too worried about changes that are taking place, we need to really think about time. And that we know that when the earth formed, it was a molten rock. and that it was transformed by symbiotic life forms that created, constantly filtered, and continuously renewed the Earth's soil and the vegetation and the biodiversity and the water cycle and regulated the weather and the climate. And we know that death is part of life, but that life continues. And I think, in a sense, we often think of ourselves as physical beings, and sometimes we're seeking to have spiritual experiences, but maybe we're spiritual beings who are experiencing physicality for a short while. And we know from history that humans, when they began to create their civilization, they really didn't understand how ecology worked. And so evolutionary succession, which is what I've been studying now for quite a long time, shows us a lot of principles. And humans over historical time have ignored these principles or didn't understand them. And so instead of always having increasing amounts of biomass and increasing amounts of necromass and natural regulation of the hydrology and the temperatures and the atmosphere, we destroyed it. And what we've seen is that this is a typical thing that has happened repeatedly throughout the world, and that we can understand it. We can use a type of ecological forensics to find the smoking gun, as it were, or the weapon. And every civilization that followed in this direction, the same thing happened. And we can see this all over the world. Now, the question is, do we have to accept these degraded states, or do we have the ability to change it? And this is what I found when I first went to China, to the Lus Plateau in the 1990s. And it was just a completely ruined landscape called the Lus Plateau. It's actually in the upper and middle reaches of the Yellow River, and it's the cradle of Chinese civilization. And it was called the most degraded place on earth. It had been for quite a long time. There was a lot of early studies about this. People who were the French and the Germans, and many people were interested in Egyptology, but also in China and India and other ancient civilizations. And this, when I got there, was a place of poverty and of kind of hopelessness, really. And what I saw was that the types of behaviors, the type of living systems that they had, or their livelihoods, were all not sustainable at all, and were passed from generation to generation. But here's what happened. So this is 94 when this began, and the next picture shows what the Chinese were able to do. And I don't have enough time to talk about all of the different things that happened, but basically they understood the symbiotic relationships between living biology and the hydrology and the temperature and climate and weather regulation. And it's really interesting to see that the Chinese were actually able to prototype, and their prototype in this place was 35,000 square kilometers, or approximately the size of the Netherlands. And it proved that you can restore large-scale degraded landscapes. And if you do, you can lower surface temperatures, you can increase hydrology, and you can restore biodiversity if you know what you're doing. So it really matters what we understand and what we do. So I highly recommend that you try to look through some of the stuff. My writing and my stuff is on my academia page. It'll have a link later if you're interested. And I started to wonder, well, what is possible? This is interesting because it's a simple technique of just putting straw into sand. And what it does is all the moisture, whatever it is, dew points, any condensation, will follow the straw down, and bacteria will begin to deteriorate it. And without even planting anything, seed will blow up, the birds will leave their droppings there, and you can see restoration coming back into areas like this. So essentially, it's really knowledge that restores, not really people so much. It's an understanding. Now here, this is the Taklamakan. So this is the sort of highest level of this understanding. So if you see, the Chinese here are even able to put a shelter belt through the middle of the second largest shifting sand desert. So I'm not sure I would do that if I were just, that wouldn't be the first thing I would try. But once you understand that it can be done, then you find out that on the surface of the sand at noon in July, the temperature is 70 degrees centigrade. I'm going to pause for just a moment. The sand, the surface is 70 degrees centigrade. Below this artificial shelter belt made with halophytes, so you have to learn about how you grow with salt-tolerant plants. And then actually it can process this, and you can go to other types of plants as well later. But it's 25 degrees centigrade. So that's a 45-degree temperature differential between the sand and below the shelter belt. Now, the fact that you could do that is extraordinary. And I've been now all over the world looking to see if these principles work. And I found that there's only really functional or dysfunctional ecosystems. And there's only either you're going toward functionality or you're going toward dysfunction. So there are degrees of function and degrees of dysfunction. So it's really about understanding these evolutionary succession principles. And for China, I noticed that when they started their agricultural development, maybe 10 to 12,000 years ago, it was a beautiful place. They had enormous biodiversity, thick soils, everything, because the loess, the geomorphology of this loess is kind of special. It's a granite igneous rock that has been ground by the movements of glaciers high in the Himalayas, and then deposited over huge time into these vast loess deposits. And so it's very minerally rich, but it has to have organic material and bacterial and fungal systems in order for those mineral nutrients to be made bioavailable to plants. So as I saw this, I saw that the Chinese were learning this, and I was learning about it from them, that they made an intervention, and their trajectory, which had been going toward ecosystem collapse or even had collapsed, something happened. It became, where they made the intervention, became the paradigm shift that determined whether they were moving toward functionality or toward ecological collapse. And I realized that's the paradigm shift. That's what we have to do. Wherever we see these degraded states, we have to understand what it means for these places to be broken. And I've called this the great work of our time. I think this is what we need to do in our understanding, that this is the next step in human understanding if we are to survive. So that makes me wonder, like all the things that we're doing, most of them are unnecessary. We're not doing what we need to do. And if we understand this and we do this, we can restore all degraded lands on the planet. And each person on the planet is necessary. And their consciousness, their intelligence, their creativity can all go to making life on Earth better. And that if you really understand the relationship of symbiosis, you realize that all living things are equal. And the things that we're thinking are the basis of wealth are actually trash. They're junk. The purpose of life is not to go shopping. And we have to understand that nothing is more valuable than the living systems, because this is the only planet we know of that has an oxygenated atmosphere, a freshwater system, fertile soils, and amazing biodiversity. So as I've been studying this, it seems like a tremendous amount of information. Now I've tried to test myself by speaking at the Royal Academy and the Royal Society and all these other places, and no one can tell me that I'm wrong. So I started to realize that I may be right. And in that case, we need to really be confident and to be courageous and take the steps needed to ensure that the next generations of life can survive. And we have to make sure that everybody learns this, because if everybody knows this, you can't unknow it. And we're all descendant from Africans. We're all Africans, really. And we're all stardust. Now, this is going a little bit further into something. I'm just going to pause for a second. I flew from South Africa in April to Copenhagen in April. This is an algae bloom off the coast of Denmark in April. If that's what it looks like with a massive algae bloom in April, think about August or July. This is going to be horrific. And it turns out we went from there to the UK, and there our new ecosystem restoration camp had actually a huge pollution event. And I've been studying now, besides soils, I've started to realize that we have to restore the water systems. These are what the Chinese are doing to all the major waterways. They've already treated 250 of these in a massive way to clean them from toxins, to remove the nutrification. It's a science, and it's well developed. So this is another thing. And what we found is this is what we're going to be doing in our ecosystem restoration communities that have this technical ability. And this then creates new jobs. It's a type of entrepreneurialism that allows people to do something that needs to be done. And you don't have to do it only in urban areas. You can do it, but you can. And it's especially effective in estuaries. So when we got to Denmark, they were very excited by this, because this actually solves the problems that they're seeing. And then when we got to Britain, we found that there it's actually criminal behavior, which is going on, that industry is dumping things that they don't want and don't want to legally process because it's expensive. They just dump it someplace, and then it poisons the streams and the rivers. And it turns out that all of the streams, at least in the south, where we were examining, are below acceptable levels, even of the Environment Agency, which doesn't seem to have any control over whether it's clean or not. So this is something that people can do once we understand this. And it's art, it's beauty, and it's life. So I find that this is this is what I think the newest levels and all the levels that come after us are going to be like. Yeah, I don't know. There's a little bit of a glitch there. I hope that's still moving. Yeah. So ecosystem restoration camps and communities started because I wrote an essay. And this essay, this is from Kentucky recently.
We are here at the Barefoot Festival. First one, lots of fun. I think that our first time we're going off without a hitch. It's really nice to do something for the community, and it's nice just to be able to connect with local folks.
I think it's important to know that if you do this, you're going to need courage. They just had acts of arson and destructive behavior on the 7,000 acres in Kentucky. So it's not like everybody wants this to happen. This is in Britain, where rewilding is taking place and being taught at some of the ecosystem restoration communities. This is called Imbrecrom. And it is really possible to engage lots of people. And I think the thing that we haven't yet figured out is that this is more valuable than anything else you can do. And so what really needs to happen is funding and support for people who do this work needs to be forthcoming. And everybody, this should create new ways of life. This is in Mexico at San Miguel de Allende, the second camp that we built, which is there in Via Organica. And it's just wonderful what can be done when you understand it. And it helps everyone. And what we need to do is work together. We need to have mass collaboration and mass participation. This is not something that is private property. This is knowledge that has to be in the common understanding and the collective intelligence of everyone on the planet. So really, I urge you to think about making new ecosystem restoration communities or joining those that already exist, and work together and then share all the information with each other, because then everyone can more rapidly grasp all that we're talking about. And I've seen that we're moving from soils to water to biodiversity, and we're also having more fun. So in this kind of period of rather depressing geopolitics and economic news, the best way forward is ecosystem restoration communities. Now, I wanted to show you this. This is the Pines Calyx in Kent. And this is Alistair Gould, who helped to design and build this. And it is a Catalan vault. It stands 1/2 mile from the lighthouse where Marconi first made the first radio transmissions. This is actually in Sussex at Furnace Brook, and we're working there to restore the water using the living water garden concepts. But at Pines Calyx, we want to make a media center which will broadcast and stream all the time. And we welcome everyone to join and support and be part of that. And this is how you reach me if you want to get a hold of me. Probably WhatsApp is better than calling me because it's long distance from most places. But there you have it. Come and visit us, and I'll tell you a little later about a new organization we have called Friends of the Ecosystem Restoration Movement. So Thanks a lot.
Fantastic, John. It's never possible to sit and listen to John Liu without coming away feeling incredibly inspired at your determination, John, the impact that you have had around the world in such a short amount of time, and the amazing communities that have been fostered and enabled by this work. So the communities, you said earlier, you can't unknow these things once you know them. Nonetheless, much of humanity knows a lot and has chosen to conveniently ignore some things. So the community building is absolutely critical. The grassroots economy work is absolutely critical. And I love the way you've touched on this. I'd love to talk with you more offline about taking some of this information to a big fundraising roundtable that I'm working on with Sir David King. But I would love to invite any quick questions for clarification. Otherwise, we will move on to talking about community building and economy building with Aude Peronne. Aude, are you ready to take the floor?
Sure. Thank you, John and Phoebe, for hosting this moment. Thanks, John, for your wonderful introduction. And yes, I'll carry on basically showing the application of how we can build untrusted communities. And I'll emphasize a little on economic system also. So I'm now engaged for a year and a half now on the ground in Kenya. It's already 20 years that I've lived in different contexts, in different international communities, with different tribes in different continents. So I've always been really curious to research, as doing how people and nature come together harmoniously. And at the beginning, I was really into plant systems, and I realized that people have a lot to do with having healthy systems around. So I always thought about, how do we rebuild systems? What does it mean? And one of the big constraints that were coming over and over after all those different, in all those different communities I've been part of, was how do we build sustainable economical systems? And if we look at the systems we are in terms of economics, we are in a really degraded system, extractive way of not working together, but competing against each other, right? So if we look at how and why the money has been built, it's built in to keep the money and to enter into those competitive systems. So here it is a little image of the beginning of the work of grassroots economics in Kenya, where here we can see two people exchanges Kenyan shilling, so national currency there in Kenya, and Sarafu network little bill that at the beginning was created by grassroots economics. But then in reinventing local economies or connection of local economies, we also realized that reinventing money was actually just copying and reproducing something that had already been done. So learning from mistakes, which is something I love and which is something I think we should integrate more in the way we live, is integrating the mistakes, integrating that we have learning paths, and integrating that any mistakes becomes a way to transform deeper our systems as well. So the legacy we have from the monetary system is the power over. So how much of that do we want to continue spreading around? How much of that, as we keep in those current system of imposing the money and imposing all the so-called values, where actually I think this is the lack of value that is more behind money. So again, how do we want to transform that? There is a wound there that's passed on, and that has a lot of side effects on the way some countries have been colonized, on the way some traditions have been erased, on the ways of non-monetary system have been erased, on the way of how people will build and create abundance naturally before the imposition of money or the imposition of certain ways to actually behave around money. What was happening before that? You know, we were living, we were thriving, we were doing a lot even before that. So now with grassroots economics, the work we are doing is really researching on what was there before, taking us together. And what we are realizing is that the collective and the collective intelligence and the collaboration was actually like a huge principles of how people would thrive. We look also a lot of on nature. So we make a lot of analogies and try to inspire ourselves of how does nature work as well. And if we look at the Three Sisters, we probably have heard about. This is a system when you can mix some maize with some beans and with some squash, and all the system and the soil benefits of that combination. And again, this has been realized in some indigenous communities where this way of growing became very symbiotic, and also very symbiotic between people and nature, because some people figured out, suddenly realized that with that combination, the soil was really good, the production was really good. And so again, it's like where is in the symbiosis the soil, and as humans, how can we interact with nature to take the best of it instead of extract from nature? And what are the techniques that we can apply that can also reflect on the way we behave as people and in the way we collaborate? Here we have made a little funny slide in a sense that, again, nature is there. Nature tends to thrive. Nature tends to make those connections. And even if we build roads in between, somehow those trees are missing each other. And somehow those trees are looking for connection all the time below that road and trying to connect, right? There's like so much happening below our feet, so much signaling all the time, and so much looking for collaboration, for connection, right? So again, like how can we take that as an inspiration for us human? Whatever can separate us, you know, there's systemic gaps, of course, that separate us, that tends to break our roots as humans, as humanity. So how can we converge again together? Because that wound that I was talking about before as well is also the wound of the social separation that's happening right now, you know, with the imposition of certain systems. So how can we listen again to that deep call that I hear so many people talking about? You know, there's something in us that, as those trees in each side of the road, telling us, oh, we need to get back together. We need to get back in peace, working together as a human species. So in Kenya, as I was telling you before, we are studying a lot the old systems, the old ways. And so those are really old images where on that side where you have this elder of the community surrounding with all the kids, that would be the school. That would be the school of life, where the different generation would be connected, where adults and children would like play together, connect together, tell some stories, and all this transmission of knowledge would be done. On the other side, you would see like this mama cooking with the children. So somehow in the village, like the life was happening all together. School was live, right? Everyone was together, they were cooking together, everyone was participating, and you were educated in a way to respond to what your system was needed, to what your territory was needed, to what your family was needed, to what your neighbor was needed. And in the photo below, again, this is all the family building a granary to dry the cereals, the maize. So basically, in those type of system, you would learn how to make, like how to build things, how to handcraft, how to cook, how to make a fire, how to tell stories. I mean, you would be like a multidisciplinary expert at that point. And now we are in a more fragmented society where we have to learn this or that, or do this or that. And when we are within the living systems, when we are living in communities, we are also reintegrated into those systems where we learn from a lot of complementary things at the same time. And we learn doing that in community. Since I live in Kenya, I'm really amazed. I mean, I've been living many years in intentional communities and always really used to be within a group of people from 10 to 20 people working, coordinating ourselves really easily. And in Kenya, it's just amazing. You can have like 50 people working together so easily from one day to the next. You call on your neighbors and you will have 50 people working together because there's a role to be fixed, right, in the village. And there's a system that's called Mueria. It's a type of rotational labor association. This is more the name, like a more academic name that's been given to all those practices such as Mueria, where traditionally it's called also Minga in South America. I know that in Uganda they call it kukuzanya, or there are different names also depending on which places. But basically what we are realizing is that everywhere around the world there were those practices where people would help each other, taking turns. Today I have a big harvest to be done in my farm. I will call on my neighbors, everyone will come, and then we'll reciprocate by going to the next person's farm. And so, you know, it's like, isn't that an economical system that's really resilient? It's like, I'm lending you what I have. At that moment, I'm lending you my time. You give me back your time as we come. And there is also the same system with finances. Many people are creating resilience economically by just lending each other, taking turns, money to help them develop their households. It's fascinating really to just look at that. To me, it's just a way to reconnect with humanity. As humanity across continents, what's connecting us? You know, what are the practices we've all applied at some point? Even where I was born in northern France, that was happening. And I remember one of my brothers just saying, if we wouldn't go to school the day that we had to attend the community harvest, that would be completely fine. That was already lost with my generation. But it's really exciting to see how, as people, we've been able to create abundance, and to create abundance not only in an economical way, but in a care system, and creating work days, sharing a really good meal where we would eat from the land. So in all of that, what we are realizing is that power can be composted as well and turned into relationships. We realize that a lot that is missing is really deep relationships. And we play lots of games to reconnect with each other. This is a thread game you can see on that image, where each time we connect with a new group, we play that game so that everyone can express what they can offer, what type of services they can offer. So they express what they offer, and they ask if anyone in the circle is interested by this offer. And when that person is interested, we throw the thread to that person, and as we go, we are weaving that big web of connections and understanding of who is who has what, who can do that for the community, and understanding who already has an interest for that specific service. And just visually, it's just reminding us also that we are all interconnected, and the more we are interconnected, the more abundance we can create, the more layers we can create weaving that web together. There is I guess most of you have heard about Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is actually a composed word. Is like Ubu is to be or to become, and Untu is a person. So how we can become a person again together. And you know, like when we say I am because you are, is even more than that. Is all together we are something. There's no more I, there's no more we. We just somehow body all together. And in this image, I'm there working with all my neighbors in Kenya, with a lot of my neighbors in Kenya. And for me, that's always been a way, is like each time we walk on the ground together, that's really where I feel I'm really a person in this earth. You know, it's like we are, even though I don't fully speak the language yet, just by doing, by being together, by achieving something together, it just feels like so many layers of what we've been told that would separate us suddenly dissolved, right? And suddenly we are achieving something together, and we are learning from a place where we are just in movement together. And again, it's just, as I was saying before, I'm just amazed by the level of collaboration of all those women that are around me in this picture. It's like suddenly we have something to do together, and they just self-organized, you know, like some take the buckets and the make lines, and all the efforts are done like in a very intelligent way, and it's just full of smiles and laughs and really good time to just be building. We were working on a water retention landscape here. We had to build like a little check dams and even some gabions to repair a road that we had to build. And so learning by doing, I think, is just completely amazing and breaks a lot of the hierarchies in the way we can be taught or we can be learning or teaching. And again, all those roles also dissolve in those processes. There is a beautiful other concept that we are learning from in Kenya, which is called kaya. And the kaya is a word that defines home, that defines society, that defines nature, and that defines resources. It's all of that together at the same time. So that's really, really interesting to realize that there were no separated word to say, this is my home, and now I'm going to work, and tomorrow I will see what I do to get my food. No, it's all of that is within one space, and it's held in the community as well. And I'll show you. So this is a map of the village where we live in coastal Kenya. Here is our home, and a land that we regenerate. We have 2.5 hectares where we are piloting a little hub to show different ecosystem restoration techniques within this farm. And then we work around the village with 60 of our neighbors to attend the village needs, the household needs. And what we do is taking turns in that rotational labor association, as I was sharing before. So here, that was part of the building check dams that I was talking about before. In another of those rotations, we went to plant some fruit trees at the other house. In the third image, we are building some compost material for another farm. In the next turn, we were building a mud house all together. It's just amazing when we build houses, like in the morning, suddenly the house is ready, and it's really fun to throw mud at those walls. The next week, we were making soap to have soap for the washing dishes. In the next turn, we were transforming biomass in the rainy season, like working on cutting in a good way the trees to prune the trees, sorry, and to integrate the biomass in the soil to create more soil and retain more moisture. And here we were in another turn of those moedia. We were preparing some, the makuti it's called, it's a typical roofing from the coconut trees. And you weave the coconut leaves together and you have an amazing natural roof. And the houses are really beautiful after that. So that's just like an example of that cycle. In our village, we have 8 activities a week going on like that. It's huge. It's like 60 people activated 8 times a week, just helping each other. And sometimes we do extra activities, like before the rainy season, we would dig holes to collect water and to have like more access to water before it rained. Another day we went fixing the road. And there's another practice that when we finish a term, we settle like who has been attending, who hasn't been attending, what are the next goals that we want to achieve. And we also combine that with a visionary approach that we've learned from an amazing university in Uganda, the African Rural University. And it's called actually Visionary Approach for Community Action Plan. So each round we do a vision. People draw their vision or express their vision, and we design action steps for those visions. And each time we try to connect more and more the individual visions to the collective visions as well. This is actually in Uganda, where we've been working, and we were in Western Uganda, and that house behind us in this photo has been built by all these women. And all those women are also part of all the groups where they collaborate with each other. And so the capacity of production within those women is just completely amazing. And they dance and they laugh and they welcome you like with, you know, a lot of joy. It's just so fun to be together like that. And with the work of grassroots economics, so here it's like some neighbors we work with. This is my partner, Will Ruddick, who has founded grassroots economics like 10 years ago. And so basically, he's talking about commitment pooling. So some people have heard about that. And basically, it's how do we pool our commitment together as a society? You know, it's nothing new. It's something that has been done all the time. And it's just more generic term to talk about all those practices, all those ways that we can, as humans, go back to our commitments, go back to our agreements, and redefine them in trust and reciprocity. So all the work we do is around that. We love using the basket as a symbol to represent the commons. Imagine that those basket is the commons. And again, we do a lot of games with seeds to seed a commitment into that commons. What are we seeding? What are the intentions we are depositing in that basket? And what is our curation as a group? You know, like all even like at Ecosystem Restoration Alliance, you have your curation of people, right? You are curating a big group of people. And there's, so that's the first step of many groups coming together. Basically, who is our extended group of trust, right? And then in the approach we work with is like, now how are we going to value those commitments? So in those reciprocal labor association is, today I work for you, tomorrow you'll work for me. And we trust that we all do that. If someone misses and don't really achieve the commitments, Then we revise what are those agreements, or we revise even if that person can keep in the group or not, or we can forgive if that person was missing 1 day or 2 days, depending on how much you will show up with your truth to the group. And then we also like make we value how much of the work has been done, and from there we can start and continue the exchange cycles around those commitments. Well, something more here. At the beginning, I was telling you that grassroots economics started with local currencies, and now it has all changed, and all those, I will show you after that, all those agreements and all those mechanisms and all those visions and work achieved, they are shown into the blockchain. We are using the blockchain not as a monetary system, but as a system of ledgers where we can redefine and show and all those agreements, all the activities we do together. But I'll jump on the network after and I'll show you that a little bit more. And here I'm just also adding that layer of science. And here it's a group of making like some little soil studies and seeing how the soil improves. And something we are also working on through the blockchain as well, as it's a ledger system. It helps us to also redesign and recreate whatever system we want, and even in terms of ecosystem restoration. If we want to redesign credits, biodiversity credits, soil credits, water credits, whatever, we can redesign it. And what do they mean from the ground? How is the culture embedded? How is the social fabric embedded into all those data, all those measurements? What it does really mean? Life in the soil, life in the society, and life into maintaining certain culture alive around the care of the earth. So that's also something we are working on within the Saraf network. I'll show you in a moment. And basically a big learning within all that world of rebuilding economics is that when we seed something, whether it's an intention, whether it's a seed in the floor, it needs care. It's a call, it's a request for care. It's not a gift per se. You just don't put a seed in the ground. Maybe it will flourish if you have chance that all the conditions recreate that. But most of the time, it really asks us to be careful to nourish that soil, to nourish that seed. And the same in our social interactions. What and how we really relate with each other. And just the last little slide here to just reemphasize that. Again, as you remember, those three separated, there's a natural tendency for us to just be people, to just be together. And that togetherness is still alive as well and that's also the value of all those ecosystem restoration communities or groups that we are working on the ground. It shows that there are values within our society, human values that are still alive, that are still there, that are still expressing in these really chaotic and scary geopolitical systems as well. And so here, I'm just going to show you quickly that the Saraf network with where everything is, you can see all the groups that are active, all the activities that are being done. We also have more and more groups using that system, more and more groups that have reached out saying, yes, we are in systems of collaboration and reciprocity and are using the network to show what they do. And in each of those, you can see what is happening. So I can zoom a little. I will zoom in Kenya to show you more specifically what we do. But you can discover the work of many groups over the globe here that are using the system.
I don't think we're seeing it. Aude, are you trying to show something? Are you?
You're not seeing that?
No,
You're not seeing enough
I'm not
now?
seeing it.
No, we do, but I see it. I suspect other people do. There may be a tab at the top of your screen, John.
I
Where's
think maybe, John, when you were sharing photos recently, John Liu, you may have changed the settings inadvertently, but I can see what Aude is showing.
Okay. I wish I could
Everyone
see
else
it.
is seeing it?
All right. Don't worry about me then.
All right, no problem. And so if you click here, you can see the report of what has been done, production of coconut, indigenous tree identification, seed collection. So this is available on the map, and this is available on what we call the pools. The pools is where you pull your commitment together. So that's why we've defined it like that. This is a beautiful project I'm part of also. I call it Friends of the Kaya, and those are the Kaya people I was a bit referring to before, and they are taking care of the sacred forest. And here you can see all the activities we are doing around the regeneration of the sacred forest. This is more inland. This is a place that's way more exposed to drought. And so you can see we've been building some swales, we've been making some ponds to collect water. And what I love from what they are doing there is they are just collecting the natural seeds of the forest and build their own nursery at no cost, just by gathering the seeds. And it's quite harsh environment. So it's just an amazing example of how you can do so much with so little resources, right? So again, as we create new economical systems, is how much we can do with what we have, the little input and the really large outcome of that. And so the pools is where you will see, you can also enter here and see all the different groups all around and what they are doing. We recently went in Spain in a project where I used to live for 15 years, and they also embodied in the system. There is a group that's from Mississippi. There is a group from Italy as well. And the group of Mississippi, I can't see it here. I'm not finding it here, but this is a big cooperative group, and they have houses, they have co-working spaces, they have farms, and they're putting together all those resources and finding systems to use all those resources the most intelligently as we can. And here you can see this is the representation of the network and all the interactions within the network. Hopefully it should go live. And you can see here every dot are representing the people active in this network. And all the connection and exchanging happening in between and amongst all that system. And what's interesting is that now what we are creating more and more is the connection between projects, between people, and using it as a way for people to interact and collaborate from the local to the global systems. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you so much for your attention.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aude. Merci bien. I think we all know that relationships are everything in changing our society, our civilization. There could be no better illustration of that than what you both have just presented to us. And thank you for that. We sit at such an amazing and potentially alarming, but also exciting crossroads of civilization. We are all here because we understand these things. We understand the choices that we need to make. How can we get this information, these ideas, these models, these experiments, this innovation out into the broader society so that 1 billion people at least can come into this restoration economy as it's being developed and experimented with around the world? I'd like to open the floor and thank you both again for fantastic, inspiring talks. Please, if you'd like to speak, You can put up your hand either manually or electronically, or if there is a gap, just go for it, and I will try to moderate. Leo Iomaremye and I are both here to help that process. So the floor is open. I know that Emil in the chat had a question about the application of grassroots economics in John's work specifically. Excuse me, I don't know whether you'd like to elaborate that on that a little bit more, either from John's perspective or yours.
Yeah. Well, I understand there's some partnering going on, and I believe there's a lot of potential to not only restore the natural environment, but also the social infrastructure. And I believe the work of grassroots economics is very advanced in that. So yeah, if you also for restoration communities, there is money going there, and you can spend it in US dollars or in Dutch guilders, or you can transfer it into a local currency, or at least part of it, and have it. Yeah, I like to compare money also with the nutrients, or how the story of John. You have to have diversity, you have closing cycles, you have to have, and with money we only have one currency, and it tends to flow away from the communities and the areas you want to have it. So that there, I think the combination is fits really well in the story.
Well, I wonder if there are guilders remaining. I thought it was euros now, but
You're completely right, John.
But I think we're also looking. I know we have a new camp forming in the UK, and what we're talking about there is to add housing to this, and we're looking at community land trusts where kind of a village can be built. It turns out that in the UK, there's been a lot of talk about this, because for those who are not successful in capitalism, they have found that there's a need for social housing, and the social housing is not a very good job, in many ways, and it gets dangerous. But what we're looking at is, could people come together, and more in the way that, say, Amish, or there's a quite successful group called Bruderhof that does something like this. They come together and they build up their housing together. We're also looking at what, through the mustard seed trust, they call the care economy, where it's also about care for the elderly and child care and other things. And I have to say, in one of our most successful ecosystem restoration communities, they get a lot of support by caring for the children. So they take care of the children, and then the parents are almost obligated to support this organization when they see it.
Mm.
But I see that there's a couple of, Alex, maybe you have your hand up?
I think John
I'd
had
like
his
to
hand up first, and then Alex.
I'd like to add something on that, just that question. Like what I've been sharing, the Sarafu network as well, is actually an open source system. And it's just a way to show how we figured out how people can collaborate, communicate, generate funds. And something I haven't shared also, that I can really show, like in some seconds in here. I'm going back to that Friends of the Kaya, as I show you. You can support here directly, whether it's with a credit card or with blockchain address, Web3, with a wallet connected on Web3. And what's really exciting to that is that it connects the donor to the receiver directly, with no one in between. So for any groups working on the ground, we don't want to be an intermediary, actually. That goes directly to the project that are expressed there. So that's really interesting in terms of collaborating around receiving funds as well. We have more and more international groups that are using that system to actually, instead of competing for money, for grants, they collaborate, and you can apply as a group, as a social system to receive those funds, and then you learn through that system also how to share those funds and attribute them to everyone. So just to add on that of course any collective can use that and make it itself, like use it as you want. It's not up to us. Every group that makes those pools is completely the steward of that environment.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Aude. John, then Alex, then Dee, then Brew. And I think please keep it brief if you can.
I will keep it brief. Wonderful presentations. Thank you so much. Aude, I noticed in your interface you have vouchers and you have, what was it, pledges. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about the mechanics of your system.
Yeah. So with questions, the vouchers is actually for you, it's like a gift card, right? So anyone can express there who you are, what services you offer, and value it, saying my services are worth whatever you decide to be worth of. There is a whole process to follow. So when you emit your voucher, you're actually expressing what commitment are you ready to do with your work and with your skills. And then the pools are where all those vouchers gather together in a group for a certain purpose, right? So there are people that say, oh, I'm actually good at whatever it is, and I'm going to make a group because I need to build that project within this group of people. So basically, those are the two basic features to express what you need to express in this network.
And in order to use this network or to explore it further, we go to sarafu.net.
Yes, exactly. And so we have more and more users, and what we're going to start doing from next week, we'll have a weekly drop-in session to help people on board, because we have more and more demand on that. So we'll have, I can share that too. Yeah, when we start doing that, because for now it needs a bit of coaching on the background. So yeah. And that's a good way to meet people that are in the network as well, and for us to bring people together.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Alex, you have the floor.
So I was going to ask what John asked. So, but first, thank you both for really lovely and complimentary presentations. It's lovely to see these two very different places in the world and seeing the hope that exists in the projects that you're presenting. In Canada, and I do conservation work as well. But my question is going to be around how do you bring this into urban settings? Because it's very different to work with the land, to be with the land, and it ties a little bit to what John was saying about being a spiritual being on the planet and that connection that people who do that kind of work have. But how do you bring this to people, and I'm an educator, so I'm thinking of my students, to students who don't have experience with the land, and where it becomes really difficult to create that experience when you are in a university setting where we cannot plant a garden or we cannot do things because the regulations around how we operate are so difficult to go over. Just any wondering if you had any suggestions.
Well, we are seeing that in China, they have been very successful in creating these living water gardens and turning more of those areas into public spaces. So that might be one thing. Another thing that could happen theoretically is that through this community land trusts, they're co-housing and other things. I noticed in certain places, you know, there are a lot of restrictions, and sometimes those restrictions are created really to benefit the real estate developers. So there needs to be a kind of pushback against that to say the citizens, you know, and people need a chance. And this is what's happening in the Netherlands. You see this, I think they have that tradition of squatting the buildings that have been, you know, underutilized. But now they have also a kind of a large force of people who have actually made some progress. One of the groups we were working with is called Grounded, and they took over a kitchen in Utrecht University and started making their own food. It wasn't that they squatted it. They were asked by the university because there was some protests, and one of those big multinational corporations, I'm not sure which one it was, had some kind of multi-million-dollar deal with the university, and the students did not like it because they had bad food, you know, not organic, long food chains, supply chains, and also very expensive. And the money left the region, so it wasn't like they were even really supporting the local people. So they actually sort of protested a little bit, and then the university said, okay, you try. We have an empty kitchen. You try it. And so they did it, and they were able to successfully do that and bring the costs down, bring local food, organic food, more vegetable-based, plant-based, and it was really successful. So I don't think you can say it can't be done. I think, you know, it can be done.
Thank you so much, John. I absolutely love that. Didi, and thank you for sharing your link to your class.
There we go. Those of you who are familiar with my work, it'll be a familiar presentation, but if there are folks who are not familiar and you want to share it with them, particularly Canadian farmers, that would be great, for policy folks. Yes, thank you both. Wonderful presentations. I had a question for Aude about I heard you mention two things that sort of pricked my ears. One was the biodiversity credits, and the other was the blockchain piece. And the biodiversity credits, I have concerns because there have been so many, so much bad things happening in the name of these credits, carbon credits, biodiversity credits, water credits, etc. And I'm just wondering how you see that, or how you're managing that. And likewise with the blockchain, my concern is that we're, my understanding is there's a lot of energy and water use going into that. I love the idea of the network where people can show how they're cooperating, but does it need to be tied in to a monetary system, whether it's cash or blockchain or credit, etc., in terms of it feels like you described a wonderful non-monetary system of people getting things done for millennia, and then it's somehow it's bonded together with our more Western mentality that everything has a price. So I'd just love to hear you speak to that and what you've considered and how you think about that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm aware that we've got only a really couple of minutes, and I'd like to give Brew a chance to respond. So super brief, if you may, please.
Certainly. Just to say that our Visitation Biosphere Restoration Plan is designed to support all these sort of projects which are restoration based. We look at 10,000 years of civilization's development, having reduced the total amount of life on the planet by more than 50%. There's somewhere around 550 billion tons of living carbon on the planet now, so we have a 550 billion ton deficit. We're part of our biosphere restoration plan is building a framework which we call empathy economics, and that's a financial structure that starts with that deficit. Its focuses on the true cost and real value of every action. Its target is the delivery of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to take us to a planet with 9 billion people living well by 2050. The only way you can do that is with massive ecological restoration and increased productivity of oceans and land. We support all the things that are happening, AI, precision fermentation. Nature is a molecular engineer. Humanity is just catching up. We're going to be able to build all the proteins that we want, of very high quality, which will lead us to a position where we can feed those 9 billion people using a fraction of the land we use now, freeing up the rest of the land for rewilding and restoring the health of our biosphere. We're building a financial system which is based on the ultimate asset, which is a healthy biosphere. And we're trying to structure this so that all of those regenerative projects can be supported. Think of this as a replacement for the gold standard, as the living carbon standard. And I'd invite you to go to our website at envisionation.org and learn more about it rather than take up too much of your time now.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Excellent. I'd like to thank you all, especially John and Aude, on behalf of Leo Iamaremia and myself and John Schull. Thank you all for coming and participating in this most pivotal conversation. Please take these ideas and innovations and insights into your networks outside our bubble of restoration people, and follow, if you can, the suggested hashtags so that we see what you have shared. I'm grateful to you all. This is indeed the great work of our times. And thank you, John. Thank you, Aude, especially.
And thank you, Phoebe and Leonard. And thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful
day. Please be in
day.
touch.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Please build this community.
Non-answered, Didi, if you want to connect with me, I'm happy to answer to your question in private. No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Aude. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Is there a reason that we need to end the recording now? I'd be happy to continue the conversation with Aude for a few minutes if she's still here.
I think she has bailed.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But we know how to find each other, and it's a conversation well worth having. Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Good to see you.
I'm probably about to disconnect you all, but
Okay.
we meet again in 2 weeks, and I hope you'll join us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Innocent.